Hey guys, for today's video, I'll be going over Hysilens kit, relics, and ornaments, Lightcones, teams, and constellations to help you reach your full potential. Starting off with her kit, her skill has a 100% chance to increase damage taken by all enemies by 20%, lasting for 3 turns, while also dealing physical damage to all enemies. For her ultimate, Hysilens deploys a zone that reduces enemy targets' attack by 15% and defense by 25%, while also dealing physical damage to all enemies. Also, whenever an enemy target within the zone takes damage from dots, Hysilens deals physical dots equal to 80% of her attack, in which the dot cannot repeatedly trigger this effect, and this effect can only be triggered up to 8 times per turn or per ally target's single attack. Not only that, but the zone only lasts for 3 turns, and it decreases by 1 turn at the start of each turn, and the zone will be dispelled if Hysilens becomes knocked down. For her talent, it states that when an ally target attacks, there is a 100% base chance for Hysilens to inflict wind shear, bleed, burn, shock on the hit enemy target, prioritizing to inflict different states. Under any one of these dot effects, at the start of each turn, the enemy target takes either wind, fire, or lightning dot equal to 25% of Hysilens attack for 2 turns. Under the bleed state, at the start of each turn, the enemy target takes physical dots equal to 20% of their max HP up to 25% of Hysilens' attack, lasting for 2 turns. For her passives, they state that at the start of battle, Hysilens creates a zone with the same effect as her ultimate, lasting for 3 turns. And whenever Hysilens creates a zone, she recovers 1 skill point. Her other passive states that when Hysilens uses her ultimate, if the enemy target is currently afflicted with dots, all dots currently applied on the target will immediately deal damage equal to 150% of their original damage. And for her last passive, if Hysilens' effect hit rate is above 60%, for every 10% exceeded, it increases Hysilens' damage by 15% up to 90%. Anyways, you want to apply all of this Hysilens kit information by just making sure her ultimate is always up, since her whole kit revolves around her ultimate. You also want to make sure that her skill, damage taken increase, is always in effect. Not only that, but you're also going to want to apply a ton of dots to the enemies so that her ultimate can do 8 instances of dot damage per turn. And you're going to want to use her ultimate to keep 100% ultimate uptime, but also you should want to use her ultimate when the enemy has a ton of dots so that she can trigger them up. For her required stats, she's gonna need 120% effect hit rate to make use of her passive's damage increase. She's also going to need either 129 speed or 134 speed, depending on whether you have her signature or not. After that, you're gonna want to give her as much attack as possible, at least 4000, with the more attack, the better. For her relics, she's gonna want the prisoner in deep confinement because it gives her 12% attack, which will help her reach 4000. Not only that, but it also lets her ignore 6% of the target's defense up to 18% for every dot that the enemy has. For an alternative set, a 2-piece of the Pioneer Diver of Dead Water set with another 2-piece of either an attack percentage 2-piece bonus relic set or a physical damage of a 2-piece bonus relic set would also be viable and cheap. For her planners, the Reverie by the Sea planner set would be her best in slot because it increases her attack by 12% and her dot damage dealt by 12% if she has 2400 attack, and by an additional 12% if she has 3600 attack, which she typically will because you're gonna want to reach that 4000 attack requirement. For an alternative, the Pan Cosmic Commercial Enterprise planner set would also be viable because it increases her effect hit rate by 10% and her attack by 25% of her current effect hit rate up to 25%, meaning that at 100% effect hit rate, which Hysilens will typically have, she'll get 25% more attack. For her main stats, she's gonna want either attack percentage or effect hit rates depending on your substats, attack percentage or speed depending on your substats, physical damage bonus on her sphere, and attack percentage or effect hit rates on her rope depending on her substats as well. For her substats, you're gonna want to prioritize getting 120% effect hit rates, then 129 if you have her signature Lightcone, or 134 speed, then you can give her as much attack percentage as possible. For her Lightcones, her signature is really good because it increases her effect hit rate by 40%, increases dot damage taken by up to 30%, and it increases her speed by 10% for 3 turns when attacked by an ally target, which helps her reach her speed breakpoints by only needing 129 speed rather than 134. Not only that, but this Lightcone also helps her reach 120% effect hit rates, all while increasing dot damage by 30%. For an alternative, Jiao Cho's Lightcone will be viable because it increases her effect hit rate by 60% and it increases damage received by enemies by up to 24%. For another alternative, Black Swan's Lightcone is also good because it increases her effect hit rate by 40% and her attack by 20%. Not only that, but it also lets her ignore up to 28.8% of the target's defense. For another alternative, Silverwolf's Lightcone will also be decent because it increases her effect hit rate by 24% and damage taken by enemies for 1 turn every time she uses her basic attack, skill, or ultimate by 12%. For another alternative, the Solitary Healing Lightcone would be decent if you can reach her required stats from her relics alone, since they can increase dot damage by 48% for 2 turns after she uses her ultimate, but it doesn't provide her with any attack or effect hit rate. For a 4-star alternative, the Tutorial Lightcone will also be good because it increases her effect hit rate by 40%. For another 4-star alternative, the Eyes of the Prey Lightcone would also be good because it increases her effect hit rate by 40% and dot by 48%. For her teams, Hysilens will really only work with Kafka. Black Swan, Robin, Ruan-Mei, Tribby, Cypher, and Huohuo, because they either increase attack, increase damage dealt, apply dots, reduce resistances, or reduce defense. Kafka is by far Hysilens' best teammate because she's able to trigger all the dots that Hysilens applies throughout her ultimate and talents. Not only that, but she's also able to increase Hysilens' attack by 100%, which synergizes extremely well with her 90% damage dealt boost from Hysilens' passive. Black Swan will also be another best in slot teammate with Hysilens because of her insane dot application and damage. Not only that, but she can also reduce the defense of enemies by 20% once they have 7 Arcana stack. Robin will be a good alternative to Black Swan because she can increase attack percentage, damage dealt, has good sub DPS, and she can advance allies forward. Ruan-Mei will also be decent because she can increase damage dealt and she provides all-type breast pen. Tribby will also be good for pretty much the same reasons. She increases damage taken by enemies, provides all-type breast pen, but she also has good sub DPS. Cypher will also be a good alternative because her true damage works with dot damage. Not only that, but she applies an unconditional vulnerability debuff to the enemies. Huohuo is going to be Hysilens' best in slot sustainer because she's the only sustainer that can increase attack. For her constellations, her C1 states that when Hysilens is on the field, ally targets deal dots equal to 116% of the original damage. It also says that when Hysilens inflicts either wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock on enemies through her talent, there is a 100% base chance to additionally inflict a wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock state that is identical to and coexists with the original talent effect, which is pretty good because it pretty much doubles her dot application and increases dot damage in general by a ton. For her C2, it states that while the zone is active, the damage boost effect from the trace, the Pharaoh of Pearls, applies to all allies, which is really good because it increases all allies' damage by up to 90% if Hysilens has 120% effect hit rates, which synergizes really well with Kafka's 100% attack buff. For her C4, it states that while the zone is active, it reduces all-type breath of all enemies by 20%, which is only decent considering this is her C4, but if you are running Ruan-Mei or Tribby alongside Hysilens, this constellation does get better. For her C6, it states that while the zone from her ultimate is active at the start of each turn or in each attack by an ally target, it increases the maximum trigger count for Hysilens' physical dot effect to 12 times, and increases the damage multiplier of the damage dealt by 20%, which again, considering it's her C6, it's only decent because even if it increases her ultimate's dot by 50% and it increases the damage multiplier, it still costs $2,000 max. Anyways, for my recommendations, I think that you should only summon on Hysilens if you have Kafka, for without Kafka, Hysilens' performance is extremely mediocre, but if you do have Kafka, the dot playstyle will be pretty good, but just keep in mind that the dot playstyle will probably fall off in 4.0 because of the nature of the dot playstyle, that being that dot is bad for multiple waves of enemies, it doesn't crit, and it has delayed attacks. But if you don't care about any of that and you do have Kafka, I would recommend summoning on Hysilens if you want her. Also, if you're going for her constellations or her signature, I recommend going for her E1, then her S1, and then her E2. Since her E1 is a massive boost in damage, her S1 a good boost in quality of life for both effect hit rate and speed requirements, and her E2 is pretty good for team damage, but it isn't anything insane. Regardless, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have anything to say, please leave it down in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. Goodbye.